Hello and welcome to this week's Medicinal Monday on the Alter Your Health podcast. I'm Dr. Susanna Alter.
And I'm Dr. Ben.
And we're both naturopathic doctors who support individuals in reversing disease and reclaiming optimal health through whole food plant-based nutrition and mind-body medicine.
So today we're talking about the nose. And yes, you might be familiar with, we're altering your health, making our way from head to toe. And we have our next stop is the nose. And when it comes to the nose, I think we all think about, and I know I think about the symptoms that I've had in my past when it comes to like congestion and stuffy nose and runny nose. And we're going to be talking more about, other upper respiratory infection stuff when we get down to the throat and whatnot. But when it comes to the nose, it's really, allergies is the main thing that plagues us. Allergic, rhinitis, hay fever, that chronic congestion, maybe working its way into sinuses and whatnot, sinus infections, and that just stuffiness that a lot of people just experience as the normal status quo, maybe coming and going with the seasons. But the fact is, we don't need to. And this is, certainly a topic that I'm passionate about, just because I have a history of childhood allergies and asthma. And I feel so great being free from that. And I know that we all have the capability to really balance our immune system. So we're going to be talking all about these things, of course, starting with kind of the anatomy, physiology side of things, then some symptom relief techniques and mechanisms, what we can do. And then, of course, making our way into more addressing the immune system and helping to balance our immune system so that we can be free from allergies. Oh yeah. Also, we'll talk about nose breathing and how actually our nose is, of course, for breathing, and we can breathe through our nose to help with our resolution of allergy symptoms, balancing the nervous system, and so much more.
Yes. Wonderful introduction, Dr. Ben.
Cool.
Yes. So let's start off with just some nose basics, talking a little bit about anatomy and what we need to know to really understand what allergies are. And so I think the first thing that we always like to remind people is that the nose is designed for breathing and the mouth is designed for eating and talking and doing all sorts of other things. Yes, we can breathe through our mouth, but it's really preferred if we breathe through our nose.
Yeah.
And that's because when we breathe through our nose, the air comes in, it passes through all these ridges called turbinates that actually filter and humidify the air that we're breathing in. So the very first line of defense is actually this nasal mucosa, these turbinates that act as this filter, even, really before potential allergens or pathogens or whatever can interface with our inners of the body.
So the sinuses, actually, a lot of people don't really know why they exist. There's not a clear mechanism of the sinuses, but they do seem to play into that, humidification of the air that we're breathing. And it's interesting to think that we've got just these big holes in our head. That's what the sinuses are, these kind of empty spaces, or at least they should be empty, but they can fill up with mucus and get clogged up, and we can experience fullness and pressure and headaches due to that sinus congestion. But yeah, I think the important thing to know is that all of our nasal passageways, turbinates, sinuses are, of course, lined with a mucosa. And that is really where a lot of the immune system is living. And like you were saying, we're breathing in through our nose, and any toxin, any potential pathogen can be stopped in its tracks right there upon entry into our nose. And then, of course, like the boogers and like that kind of acute congestion when we're, walking in a grassy field or something like that. That's or dusty things and breathing things in. That's totally normal and natural. That means that our nose is doing a good job of filtering. And then we should be blowing that out rather than sucking it in and breathing it in and whatnot.
And swallowing it
and getting to that, it's very common to swallow, and then you get the post-nasal drip, working its way into like the sore throat. So we want the nose to be the defense system and, blow it when we need to and breathe through it to allow the optimal filtration of the air that we're breathing. to avoid that exposure to toxins as well as any potential pathogens.
Right, right. But yeah, it's important to know that we have immune cells that live in our nasal mucosa, and they're really ready to defend us whenever we may encounter any kind of foreign pathogen. And also important to know that when we do have an increased production of mucus, that mucus is also filled with white blood cells. It's actually that mucus is there to serve a purpose and actually aid in the resolution of whatever kind of infection we might be
Mm,
encountering. Part of having a healthy nasal mucosa is also having healthy cilia. Cilia are like these little finger like kind of structures that line the mucosa and really help with the movement of that mucus
mm,
so that we don't have this stagnation of mucus, because that's when we can have the uncomfortable symptoms of congestion when things
totally.
aren't moving.
Totally. And so nasal congestion is kind of the first thing that, of course, very common allergy symptom, but that can put us at risk for developing other symptoms and conditions like the sinus infection, like the,
Ear
ear
infection.
infection that we talked about last week, like the upper respiratory infection that we'll talk about in weeks to come. Nose is really obviously an important structure, and let's shift gears and talk about like, kind of introducing this idea of allergies and allergens and what it's coming from. And, of course, everyone's got their potential susceptibility, sensitivity. But really, it's not like for me, growing up, it was grass and pollen and dogs and cats, the typical stuff. And it's not like dogs and cats and grass and pollen have anything, like that like directly toxic or poisonous or anything that causes symptoms for everyone and anyone, right? So when you're with a family or a group of people, it's, a couple people have runny noses, but not everyone. Why is that? And that has to do with kind of the imbalance of the immune system and the strain on the immune system, that kind of systemic inflammatory response. And of course, everyone's got the unique sensitivity. And I like to think about it as kind of just the straw that breaks the camel's back. We've got this kind of heightened immune response, and then we kind of put something in, whether it's a grass protein or pollen or some pet dander, and it's just like too much.
It sensitizes the immune
Yeah,
system. So then in the future, when the body encounters that same protein, it's like, all right, let's send in all of the, inflammatory uh, white blood cells and everything we need, the mast cells, the histamine, to fight off this evil, pollen protein, when really it is a very benign structure. It's just that the immune
yeah.
system has been sensitized to it.
So we'll talk at the end about kind of rebalancing the immune system, which is certainly playing the long game. It doesn't happen overnight. The restructuring, rebalancing of the immune system. But first, let's talk about alleviating these symptoms, kind of managing these symptoms in a natural way. Because of course, the conventional approach to allergies and nasal sinus congestion is decongestants, things that just kind of dry you out. But if you think about it, those mucous membranes should be nice and moist and healthy. And a nice, moist, healthy mucous membrane is actually that line of defense towards any foreign invader. So people who are taking decongestions are then therefore more susceptible and vulnerable to those secondary infections, to the ear infections, upper respiratory infections, sinus infections, because their mucous membranes aren't really doing what they're intended to do. So of course the natural approach, quote unquote, is not decongestion, but actually moving the congestion, more productive congestion. And that's where things like hydrotherapy come into play, specifically steam inhalation, bringing a pot of water to boil on the stove, throwing in some nice antimicrobial soothing herbs like oregano, thyme, rosemary, whatever else, draping a towel over your head, and then breathing hopefully through the nose, and allowing that steam to kind of moisten the mucous membranes and get things moving.
Right.
And then the next thing is
Yeah.
more specific for when things are really kind of stuck and there's that sinus involvement.
Yes, alternating compress on the sinuses is so relieving. I did this a lot when I was dealing with mold allergies in Portland. And what you do is you simply put a warm, wet compress on whatever sinuses are affected for about 3 minutes. And then you alternate with a cold, wet compress for 30 minutes. If you
30,
do,
30
sorry,
seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
And if you do 3 rounds of that, generally it really helps to decrease the pressure in the sinuses.
Totally. I guess another really important thing is hydration. Just if we think about the movement of that mucus, dehydration is going to cause thick mucus. And so optimizing our hydration status is so important. And on that note, another kind of supplement. There's a lot of supplements that can be used to help the production of mucus and the flow of mucus. But one of our favorites is N-acetylcysteine, NAC. NAC helps to kind of break up mucus and make it more thin so that it can be, again, moving and not causing the super congestion and stuckness.
Definitely. Yeah.
A few other supplements and herbs.
Yeah,
and
a few
stuff.
other supplements and herbs that have been shown to be very helpful for minimizing allergies. Vitamin C, of course, it has a balancing effect for the immune system. Nettles, especially freeze-dried nettles, has a lot of research behind it showing that it can help to decrease seasonal allergies. And then there's other more kind of symptomatic relieving herbs like butterbur, which is often used, especially for people who have kind of allergies that affect your eyes, like hay fever and
and also eye bright.
And eye bright.
Yeah.
Yes. And so, I think it's important to kind of distinguish between, okay, when we use these helpful supplements, how is it actually helping to create balance in the immune system versus what is just kind of relieving symptoms? Because we can look at a lot of the other kind of conventional interventions like antihistamines and things like that, which can be very relieving for people who do have the seasonal allergies, but aren't really getting at the root cause of the seasonal allergies in the first place.
Which, of course, these don't really get at the root cause either. These kind of natural symptom relief.
Mm-hmm. Right, it's
but it
true.
at least allows the body to kind of do what it's trying to do rather than block the process.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. So we like them.
Totally. So shifting gears again to talk a little bit about nose breathing, which when we're congested can be really challenging. It's like, wait a second, I know my nose is for breathing, but it's all stuffed up. Can't breathe through my nose. Or, I can only breathe through my left nostril. I can only breathe through my right nostril. So the interesting thing is that proper, regular, consistent nose breathing practices is kind of the best way to maintain open airways. So kind of breaking the cycle, of mouth breathing and really practicing nose breathing is really, at the end of the day, an important thing to do. But interestingly enough, when we are congested, there's kind of this little hack that we can do to immediately open up our nose passageways. And this hack involves just taking a few breaths, the best we can, in and then out of the nose, and then let the air all the way out of your nose and hold your nose, and then just hold that exhalation until you kind of feel the need, that hunger for another breath, and then breathe through your nose. And you'll notice it's a little bit more open, and then you can kind of breathe normally for a few rounds of breath, and then do it again. Hold the air out, hold your nose until you get some good air hunger, as it's called, and then your nose will be a little bit more open. And what's happening is you're actually building up carbon dioxide in your blood, which is a good thing in some cases. And you're also building up nitric oxide in your blood, which helps to open up the airways, kind of vasodilate both the blood vessels and the airways themselves. This, of course, is good for our vascular system at large, but also, all the blood vessels feeding our respiratory passageways and whatnot. And this kind of helps to, again, just naturally open up the airways. And interestingly, that nitric oxide, there's been some evidence suggesting that breathing through the nose is actually one thing. We talked about the filtration that kind of blocks, and the mucous membranes that block and attack any invading pathogen. But the nitric oxide production itself is also antimicrobial and kind of kills the pathogens in the nasal passageways as well. So yes, so that nose breathing is really important for, again, filtering the toxins, filtering out the pathogens, killing the pathogens, increasing oxygenation of our blood. When we're breathing through our mouth more regularly, we're more likely to have decreased blood oxygen levels. And that's because the increased pressure within our system that comes from breathing through the nose kind of drives oxygen into the bloodstream more efficiently. Also, of course, we talk about this a lot, but when we're, specifically focused on nose breathing and diaphragmatic belly breathing, kind of breathing in through the nose into the belly and then slowly exhaling. And again, like practicing that kind of gentle breath hold on the exhale. That's a really great way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps our kind of body relax and our immune system balance, our blood pressure drop, and all these kind of good things. And all these things together, can help regulate the immune system, create that strong filtration system that prevents allergies and congestion. So, the best thing we can do if we've got a stuffy nose is just kind of work to use that little hack to open up the nose passageways, and then do our best to consistently, breathe through the nose.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Anything else that I missed or wanted
That's
to add?
great. That's great. I mean,
Okay.
you covered the majority of the benefits. Yeah, and so yeah, I think now moving on to kind of what we've been alluding to earlier in today's episode, getting at the root cause of the immune imbalances that lead to allergies, and this is so important. It really comes down to balancing the Th1 versus the Th2 branches of the immune system. Now, there are other branches of the immune system as well. There is T regulatory and Th17 as well. So the immune system is very, very complex.
Yeah.
But to kind of simplify the discussion for the purpose of talking about seasonal allergies, you can consider just for now 2 branches of the immune system kind of working like a seesaw. When the Th1 response is high, the Th2 response is low, and vice versa.
And just to interject, when we're talking about allergies, that's really Th2 dominance.
Right. So exactly. Th2 dominance, when Th2 is, higher up on the seesaw, that tends to be the pattern in the immune system when people have chronic allergies. Now, some other conditions that are also associated with Th2 dominance include eczema and also asthma, just to kind of, add some more information out there. But there are many practices that can, help to balance out this immune system. Well, no, I just...
How can I practice?
I know we need to get to the gut health. That's the more important thing. I know.
No, I think it's. Tell me about the practices.
Nutritionally.
What's the practice?
Yes,
if we juggling or something.
Eat cleanly. Do not eat antigenic diet, or very highly antigenic diets. Don't eat a lot of dairy and eggs and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And also there are all sorts of kind of supplements that have been studied to downregulate the Th2 response and upregulate the Th1 response. But what's really, really important in talking about balancing the immune system is supporting overall gut health.
Oh, I beg to differ. I think that the most important thing to balance the immune system is to not be afraid of quote unquote germs. Viruses and bacteria are actually necessary for balancing the Th1 immune response. The Th1 immune response is involved with that fighting that bacterial or viral infection. So people who are in the clean environment, and maybe you've heard of something called the cleanliness hypothesis, which was a hypothesis, has really been proven to be fact. Kids growing up in a sterile environment without pets, without playing in the dirt, et cetera, and so forth. they're more likely to have allergies and eczema and asthma, etc., and these kind of Th2 dominant states. So that was actually the case for me. I didn't have pets growing up. I don't know if that was specifically, I would say I was playing in the dirt, but it wasn't until I got to high school and like toward the end of my time in high school, I got a good viral infection. I got a good case of Epstein-Barr, mono, and my allergies kind of went away after that. I kind of was reliant on a vasodilating inhaler and, antihistamines and whatnot, and no more. So, of course, now I understand that from a perspective of like immunology and how important that is. But in our world today, there's just so much antibacterial everything, antibacterial soaps and hand sanitizers, and just this fear of quote unquote germs that really drives all these Th2 dominant imbalances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's I think that the most important. Maybe you disagree.
No, I do agree.
Okay.
I'm just going off of Ben's outline here that he's created. So thank you.
I sorry, that's distracting us.
Yes.
We're just having a conversation.
Okay, yeah. Great. Yeah, no, it's extremely important. And I mean, we also see how kind of influencing the immune system with exposure to different types of pathogens can also kind of help states where there's a Th2 insufficiency, which I'm just getting now into a totally different topic. I won't go there.
But yeah, so being exposed to viruses and bacteria and allowing our Th1 branch of the immune system to work itself out. And I think about the immune system as like a muscle. It's like we got to use the muscle, both branches, in order to stay balanced. If you're just doing curls with your left bicep and your right bicep's going to atrophy and you're going to be all lopsided and probably develop all sorts of structural issues and pain things and whatever. So yeah, it's just about exercising the immune system in this balanced sort of way. But as you were alluding to, gut health is a huge part of that because, and we'll talk a lot more about this when we get there. But our immune system fundamentally lies in our gut for the most part. So if we're constantly kind of putting that strain into our immune system from that place, then it causes this systemic inflammatory response that is just going to have a strain on the system. So need to be mindful of healing the gut, removing those dietary antigens, like you were saying, diversifying the microbiome, sealing up the gut lining, but also, not being afraid of quote unquote germs. Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
All right. I think you covered it all, Dr. Ben.
Oh, okay. Nothing to add?
No, nothing else to add.
All right.
Great. All right. Well, next week we'll be back. We'll continue going down from head to toe. We'll be going down to the throat.
Mouth and the throat. And, yeah.
We'll be talking more about upper respiratory infections there. And on Wednesday, we'll be talking about the energetic components that can contribute to allergies as well.
Cool. All right. Peace and love, you guys.
Bye for now.